Wise Wednesdays started on April 1st with a humble episode on forgiveness. Between then and now, we've had Wise Wednesdays started on April 1st with a humble episode on forgiveness. Between then and now, we've had heart-led conversations on happiness, stress management, relationships, resilience, public speaking, respecting boundaries, self-discovery, mindset, just being, listening, reclaiming your life, intuition, and even food. I would like to thank all my listeners and the guests who gave me their time and trust. It is because of you that we kept going. It is because of you that we kept growing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so, so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so, so much. My guest today is Supriya. She is a voice that a lot of you know. And the beauty of her is that she is a fabulous person. Somebody I really immediately got magnetized to. And so I just had to have her on the countdown to 100. And she is on episode 97 of Wise Wednesdays with RK. She's talking about the power of being yourself. And why is she doing that? Because her journey is absolutely fabulous. She is a voiceover artist, an RJ, a podcaster with 16 years experience in various formats of radio. Yes, you definitely must have heard her on air and maybe across listening to ads. And I could just go on and on. But one thing that really struck about her is the fact that she has also been on the racetrack. We will discuss more on that because that absolutely has to be brought to the front. And before anything else, let me take you and bring on board my amazing friend and our guest for today, Supriya.
Hey, hi. And I want to start with saying thank you, thank you, thank you. I mean, those words are just magical. Thank you, Rukaya.
I am so blessed. I mean, I'm so grateful that we are having this conversation long due. And
Yeah,
thank you for saying yes.
of course. And I think this is the quickest yes and the quickest thing, right? I mean, goes on to
Absolutely.
show sometimes one shouldn't plan for too long. You just need to
I
just go
love
with the
that. I
flow.
love that. Absolutely. I mean, sometimes we plan way too much and it's I think it's the beautiful things that come together in a heartbeat. And that's what it was for this conversation. So thank you. And today we're talking about the power of being yourself. When I looked at your profile, I was mind blown. Of course, I've known you even before I've known your profile, but to read about the amazing work that you've done and the fact that you're a baker, a mom, someone who's been on the racetracks. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
And you truly live what we are going to be talking about, which is just to be yourself.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about what it means to you when I say be yourself.
Right. So, it's strange because be yourself is like a phrase or a mantra that a lot of people have. And over the years, for me, as I have evolved as a person, the meaning of those few words have really changed a lot. Earlier being yourself used to be like, I'll follow what I want to do and I'm not going to listen to somebody else. Or, I'm not going to do something because the majority is doing it. It was on a very superficial level, if I may. The whole be yourself thing. But as I've grown, and I think NLP has played a very, very important role in the sense of really becoming aware, right? And when you just stop and become aware of what you're doing and why you're doing certain things, you realize that the yourself is sometimes not given the importance or the acknowledgement that it absolutely deserves. So, which is why I feel like it's so important that conversations are had about being yourself or recognizing the you within you, and
Hmm.
not just on a very high. I did it because man kiya, not that kinds. Yeah.
Okay. So you're an RJ. So how do you actually start off your shows, or are you? I mean, are you also working as an RJ currently?
So right now I'm on a break from being an RJ, but that hasn't stopped the drama or the talking in my life. That continues, and I think that's just a part of my being. But I've realized that whether it was a Bollywood show that I was hosting, or it was a corporate show that I was, corporate podcasts that I did, whether I was speaking to like the MD of a company or just a new joinee, no matter where the person was in their journey and no matter what the context was, I realized that somewhere it would just loop back to who you are as a person, right?
Mm.
And the value that you can add to another person's life. So even if I'm talking about movies, it would very often loop back to what is it that you can take away from it, right? I mean, yes, you had a good laugh, yes, it was entertainment, you cried, you don't like the star, you danced to the song, but there is something that every experience in our life changes us. And I think that's something I've always spoken about on my shows, and that's something that's very precious to me.
True that. And I like what you said about the experiences, because I think every experience kind of weaves back into, adds a thread to your fabric of life, right?
Totally.
It kind of makes this beautiful tapestry that just you can understand, and it doesn't have to be that everybody can understand what is being weaved or what is being created as you
Yeah.
live your life.
Which is
Tell
why I
me.
think it's important to own who you are, right? Because no matter how you feel, how you speak, how you look, or what you do, what your mannerisms are, what your habits are, I think all of them come together because of the experiences that only you have had. Might have been other people with you, but it has been your experience, and which is why you can't fault anyone or you can't judge anyone, because it's not your journey to talk about.
Absolutely. And I like when we were speaking the other day, you said, we play so many roles that we
Yeah.
forget to play ourselves. And that's exactly what you wanted the title to be. But tell
Yeah.
us more about that. I kind of condensed it, but
Yeah.
tell us more what you wanted to convey to the
Sure.
listeners.
So, like I said, with NLP and the whole act of awareness, right? When somebody says become aware, you suddenly say, okay, so there is a bottle next to me, or there is a light, there's a laptop. These are physical things that you become aware of. And that's probably the first step. But when you kind of go on a very deeper level and you become aware of how you are, and why do you say the things that you say, or why are you doing certain things, it kind of struck me, and it was quite a huge revelation when I realized that pretty much everything that I was doing was as I was playing out a role. Like, even if you look at your entire day, you wake up and then you do a certain thing as the lady of the house, or the man of the house, or the child of the house, and then you do something as somebody's parent, somebody's child, somebody's wife, husband, partner, whatever it is. I feel like everywhere, every activity that we do, everything that we do is a responsibility we're fulfilling towards a certain role, that again, it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be so clearly defined, but it is. And so if you sit back at the end of the day and say, okay, I did all of this, yeah, I cooked, but that was also for my family, also for myself. But if you can isolate and say, what did I do for the Supriya within, right?
Mhm.
I was left a little lost. I said, "Oh, I am not really sure," and it became very visual for me, almost like. So I have my son calling me and he's saying, "Mama, can you do this?" And I'm like, "Of course." And then I have my mom calling me and saying, "Can you do this?" And I'm saying, "Yeah." And from within, Supriya is like, "Listen, listen, listen," and I don't have the time to listen because I'm just too busy doing other things. So it was a very, very important, I think, point when I realized that there is a voice inside that's constantly knocking and saying, "Are you there? Like, can you listen to me?" And you're just like, "Hang on, I have things to do." But the
You
minute you
know,
kind of turn the attention inwards, I think it's beautiful. And I feel like somewhere you also start doing a lot of other things that you were already doing, but in a very mindful manner, and that
hmm,
just changes the whole experience of life.
I love this, and I'm actually listening to you as a listener, not as a host, because I think I needed this. I mean, I've been away. I'm in India at the moment, and
Right.
I'm literally running task after task after task, and it's been tiring. It's been tiring to the extent where I'm actually feeling myself knocking there and saying, "Hello, can you like also pay
Yeah.
attention?" Because I'm just used to also unwinding and giving myself time. But these
Which is
last few weeks have just been overwhelming with things to do and things to tick off. Do that. I'm not complaining, but
right.
I'm just feeling that, that need to kind of slow down a bit, and
Yeah.
that anxiety that maybe if I do slow down, will I still be able to complete my to-do list in the limited time that I have over here? So
Yeah.
that overwhelm and that expectation from myself is kind of pushing me to a corner where I'm feeling a little fatigued at the
Yeah.
moment. But I was actually listening to you like this and say,
And I'm sure
okay,
a lot of people would relate to what you just said, because I think that's pretty much how life is for most of us.
yeah,
And it is, as cliched as it may sound, or as privileged as it may sound, to say, oh, it's up to you to pause and take a break and all of that. I mean, at every point, everyone can say, boss, I can't afford to. Like, it's all very well to say, oh, sit in the morning and meditate. I can't. I have to make, I have to cook, I have to take care of
yeah,
my kids, have a job, whatever it is. So, which is why it becomes important to see what works for you, right? Like, what works for you, how you unwind, require is, I'm very certain, won't be the same way that I can. You know, that might actually stress me out some more. I'm not getting anything done in these 2 hours or whatever. So, but yeah, I mean, what you said, a lot of us would relate to that. You're just running from one task to the other, and before you know it, it's night, and you're like, oh, I better get some sleep before the same drill starts again. Yeah,
exactly. And just realizing that each and every moment you're also judging your own capacity to either get the done, or just to make sure that things are in the right place at the right time. But when we look at being ourselves, how important is it to trust the process? And before you answer that, I need to acknowledge a student who is watching, Ansh,
mhm.
and I'm happy to hear that he has received the smiley stress buster that I've left for him at Chulani University. Amazing child, someone who definitely cannot be put in a box, someone who is definitely going to shine in his life. And he has, and I've had brief conversations with him, and he's someone who has finally understood the power of being himself. So thanks,
Absolutely.
Ansh, for joining. Thank you, Vidya. Thank you, Neeta. And who else? Michelle, thank you for joining us. I see we have a few other people, so please let me know who's watching and from where. And if you're new to the channel, do subscribe. And Supriya, I'll take you back to that
Yeah.
question now after we acknowledge everybody. Thank you
Yeah,
for
that's beautiful.
this.
Ansh, all the very, very best. Neeta, Michelle, thank you. Vidya, thank you so much for joining.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when we look at expectations that we have, of course, when we talk about being ourselves, a lot of times we are not able to be ourselves because of the expectations of others, right? Those are things
Right.
that people might have about us. But what about the times that you have expectations of yourself and you're struggling?
Yeah. So I think it becomes very important to first define what do you mean by be yourself, right? Like I was saying,
Mm,
in your journey, it depends on where you are at and what does it mean to be yourself. Does it mean that from 2 to 3 in the afternoon, I'm not going to listen to anybody, I'm going to lock myself in the room and I'm going to do what I want? To somebody, that could be being yourself. To somebody else, it could be every single thing that I do through the day, I'm going to do it in a way that makes it mine, right?
mm,
So once you define what it is to be yourself, I think you'll have more clarity in terms of how is it that you're going to now execute it. And yes, we are very, very harsh on ourselves, and one of the ways to, I think, kind of be nicer to yourself is to, the minute you do something and you get upset with yourself, just think about the one person that you love the most, and assume that that person did what you just did, and how are you going to react to that person,
mm,
right? So as simple as, let's say I missed a meeting. Okay, I missed a meeting and like my alarm didn't ring, my reminders didn't go off, and I totally missed it. I am going to be completely mad at myself, saying, "How could you? You had technology to help you, blah blah blah." But think of it as, let's say that a colleague that you really really respect and love working with, or your child missed a class. Are you going to be just as harsh with them? Perhaps not.
mm.
you're
Absolutely.
gonna you're gonna kind of explain it on their behalf and say, it happens to the best of us. Or technology can't be, or you can't be so dependent after all, or whatever. You'll find 10 reasons to kind of be nicer to that person and say, of course you might be upset, but you're not going to be as harsh as you would be with yourself. So that's
Yeah.
something that I'm trying to do, where if I'm getting mad at myself, I say, oh, hey, 1 minute, let's just take a moment and see, if someone else did this, how would I react? And then let's look at, how am I reacting right now? So I think that's something that helps in not being so hard on yourself.
I like that. We're quick to be kind to others, but when it comes to ourselves, we are very strict, very resistant, and
Yeah,
very harsh.
yeah,
It's unfortunate that we are. So I like that when you can actually look at a situation and say, how would I respond if somebody I love had done the same mistake? What would you do? I like that. I like that. And we've got family watching. We've got Uma watching.
Yeah, that's my mom.
I
I'm
love it.
her to be.
Thank you for joining us.
Uh,
And
that's my
Shivaran,
cousin. Yeah, doctor is my cousin.
lovely. I love it when family steps in. I mean, like, hats off. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, if you haven't subscribed, do subscribe to the channel. Uh, you're also an ardent baker.
Yeah,
How does baking create a release for you? Because that's again a creative space, right?
right. So it's
Tell us
really funny
about
how baking happened to me, because
it.
anyone
Mhm.
who knew me until like what 2021, 2020 July knew that I was the most anti kitchen person. And
Ah,
I mean, my mantra was, why would you sit and buy ingredients and bake and, or cook and all of that when you can just order? Like, why would you go through all of that? And so I really feel like, divine intervention happened when suddenly one fine day I'm just like, oh, I know how to bake. So it's a very natural, like literally it just flows, so I'm not looking at it as, is it a release or is it stressful? None of that. It just flows. It's just very comfortably become a part of who I am right now. So when I bake, it's just another thing that just happens, you know. So I haven't, because I do hear, I mean, I know a lot of people who say I bake to unwind and, cooking is my therapy and all of that. I don't quite understand it, because I don't think I've experienced it in that manner.
and I'll tell you my story of. Sorry about that. I'll tell you my story. I'll tell you my story about baking and cakes. Is I started when I was 12.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so there was this amazing ad that I saw in the newspaper. Came back from school and opened the newspaper to read comics, and I saw this ad in the newspaper about baking classes. I called up the lady and I said, "I'd love to join your classes," and she said, "Sure. What are your timings?" And as a very very dutiful student, I say, "I come home by 2." So she thought, I come back from work at 2. So she said, "Yeah, sure, you can join us." And then when I actually went and met her, and she looked at me and she said, "You're 12." I said, "Yes." So she said, "And you're interested in baking?" I said, "Yeah." So she said, "I don't have classes for children at the moment. Maybe you can join us next year." So I did actually go back next year when she had classes, and uh, I learned baking then. And my connection with cakes and baking is that I would bake the cake and dad and I would do the icing. So that was our
Right.
bonding time. So
Right.
for me, baking is this absolutely amazing thing that anybody can do, and I just love it.
That's beautiful.
It
And that
definitely
and
is.
that you were so sure at 12 that you wanted to do it, that you waited a year. I mean,
Wait,
I
I
think she
think
tells
more.
you to check if you really want to bake, or is it just one of those.
Yeah, one of those things. But I think more than anything, I did put out the word, and then a year later she approached me, called me up, and she said, to would you be interested in joining? And so I did definitely go back to her. So we've got a question here from Ansh. And Ansh says, as you both are talking about being harsh on ourselves, but at any cost, it's going to be harsh because we have some goals and aims to complete that we have to be harsh on ourselves. Okay, so let me rephrase that. I think what he's trying to drive at is, do we always have to be harsh on ourselves so that we accomplish our goals and aims? Ansh, give me a quick yes if I got it right. And if you'd like to read it again, here it is on the screen. So, what do you interpret of it,
Sure.
Supriya?
I think what he means is that, you can't always be kind and lenient with yourself, because you're not going to get anything done. So this is almost like, when you join like a workout course and then they say do it at your own pace, and that means to some of us to never really get around to doing it, right? So, you wonder if someone had forced you to join a class every morning at 7, and kept your video on or checked on you and said, oh, you've not done this asana, or you've not done this or done that. Yeah, and she just responded saying yes. um, so there, I think there's a huge difference between being driven and being harsh or kind of unkind to yourself. It's like they say, right, at the workplace, it's okay to be assertive, but don't be rude. So there is a fine line. I'm like, if I want something, I might tell somebody at the workplace, like, I need this by tomorrow night. But If I'm going to say, you know what, I don't give a, whatever, but you have got to give it to me by tomorrow night, that's not cool. That is not going to get any work done, because that other person's feeling disrespected. So, Ansh, I would say, look at it as, how would you tell your friend? Like, if your friend came and said, bro, I really want to do this and I really want to achieve this, you're not going to say, sit around, ho jayega. You won't. But at the same time, you're not going to be harsh on him. You will be motivating, you will inspire him, you will show him the reasons why he should do this. You might even be strict with him, right? To get him into a routine or get him into a discipline, but you're not going to be harsh on him. So how you speak to yourself, the words that you pick, try to be as nourishing and as encouraging as possible, as opposed to saying, oh, again, one more day, you have not yet done this, you never do these things, or you'll never get something done. That is harsh and that's unnecessary. And I also think it's counterproductive, because your inner self is only going to feel even more bad about it. But instead, if you said, you know what, another day has gone by, let's get strict about this, or let's get our act together, we're losing time, from tomorrow we have to stick to this. So that there's the difference. I hope, Ansh, I've responded to what you had in mind.
I love that. Be nourishing. Nourishing. And when it comes to nourishment, we look at, a lot of times when you look at the word nourishing, we look at food, we look at what are we eating, right? That's the thing. But I think nourishment is not just about food, it's also about what you're consuming in terms of content, whether it's the books you're surrounding yourselves, the people you're surrounding with yourself, the ideologies that are around you. Are these supportive of who you are, or are these, pulling you down and weighing you down? How is it? How is your environment being for you? There's so much that
Yeah.
goes into being nourishing to yourself and the process of being yourself.
Yeah.
So, again, within your profile, there were so many things about you that really stood out for me. And I think what really jumped at me, because my daughter is a big car fan, is
Mhm.
your love for cars.
Yeah.
And you have won, winning the fastest lady driver at the Maruti Suzuki Auto Prix 2017. And was this when you were in your early days of pregnancy of
Yeah,
the?
so that's the funny thing, right?
Tell us,
I
tell
had
us,
no,
tell us.
yeah. So this was 2017, and my husband and I had done a rally before this, like about a month before all of this happened, and that was a TSD rally, which is basically a time, speed, and distance rally where you don't drive fast. You have to calculate. There's a lot of math, so I let him be the navigator, and I just did the driving. So he said, like, for the next 3 kilometers, you have to drive at 20, and then you pick up speed to 35, then come back down to 17, stuff like that. So I made a few friends there, and got to know a few people. So when they had this auto play happening in Bangalore, they reached out and they said, why don't you come and participate? So I just went for the fun of it. I love driving anyways. So I was like, oh, if I get to drive fast on a track, I mean, this is like the best thing that
Best
can
of both
happen.
worlds.
Yeah,
Best of
so
both worlds.
absolutely. So I called a friend of mine and I was like, "Can you please come along? Because I don't know how it's going to be." So the poor guy came all the way and accompanied me to an entire day of standing in the sun at the end of it all. But it was amazing. So I'm driving off ramps and landing my stock car on the ramp that's stopping the whole thing, and it's just so much fun. I go ahead and I win this, and I get some money as well. So I'm like, oh my god, this is like the perfect thing that that could happen. And then I come back home to parents and in-laws who are so happy and want to celebrate the whole thing. And in like about a week or two after that, I find out that I'm already pregnant with my daughter. So I'm just like, oh my god. Sometimes not knowing everything is a good thing, because if I'd known, I probably wouldn't have gone racing. And touch wood, like she was born healthy and
Yeah.
all good, so all fine.
Okay. So she's got racing in her blood, quite literally.
Quite literally. So most of it now, when we look at her, we're like, yeah, well, she started early, so
Oh
way
yes, she did. Love it, love it. Uh, and it's beautiful that you have this story to share with her
yeah.
about who she is and how, lovely. So when it comes to the stories we pass on to our children
Yeah.
and how significant they are in shaping who they become.
I'm so glad you asked me this, because there was this time when I was speaking to a friend of mine, and she was telling me how she's so worried about the kind of image or the kind of person that she is in front of her child, right? And I think any parent would relate to that, where you just want to be the best version of yourself, and you only want to show the good things to your child because, oh, they will pick up from observing us, and they're going to pick up from our behavior. And that exactly is why I think we must absolutely keep it real. It's okay to show your child that you're angry. It's okay to show your child that you're failing, that you haven't got it all together. It's okay to show them that you're confused about decisions in life, or that you took one and that didn't work out the way you expected it to. It's when children see that it's absolutely normal for fully grown, healthy adults, who are supposedly their role models at that stage at least, to be failing, because then it just normalizes and just makes it okay for a person to not constantly have to succeed and be the best at everything and top everything. I think that's just so unrealistic, and I think eventually that leads to so much resentment and unhappiness in a person, that to undo all of it when the person is 30, 40, takes just so much time and effort that you miss out on all the things that you could have done if you weren't conditioned in a certain way. So as a parent today with two children, one who's 12 and one who's 4, we are very, very particular in being open and also showing them that it is okay, and to own up. Like, if you decided that you're only going to study half an hour and write an exam and you got a certain number, own it. you know Look at it and go back and say, hey, okay, so half an hour gave me this. Imagine if only I had studied for 2 hours and actually covered the entire syllabus. So that sense of ownership from early on, I think, really shapes you as a person, because then you're not doing it for someone else, you're doing it for yourself. It's not because my mom will ask me for good marks that I have to study. No. So today, when my son cries about his marks, and I'm like, chill, you're in seventh, kuch nahi hone wala hai. He says, you don't understand. And I'm glad that I don't, because he's doing it for himself. So the Dhruv in him is not happy with what he has done. And that I think is a healthy place to be at, where you do it for yourself.
Do it for yourself. You set your own standards, and then
Yeah.
you rise above them each day, right? You be your own competition.
Yeah.
Sounds very cliche, but I think somewhere along the line, because of the kind of cultural expectations that we have, especially when you look at the South Asian
Mm.
communities, we have that whole competitiveness
Yeah.
within us. And so, unfortunately, we're competing with everybody else and not with our own self. And I think whereas the competition should actually be with your own self
Yeah.
and not the rest of the world. So yeah,
Because again,
thank
that's
you.
not in your control, right? I mean, like, my son plays football, and that's what we tell him, that you have no control over your own teammates. You don't know how your teammate is going to play that day, because you don't know what his mindset is, and what his state of, like, the physical rest, whatever it is. But all you can do is look at yourself. So become
Mm,
aware of how things are changing, and then how can you adapt and make the most of it. So,
mm.
even if you are looking at competition, I think there is a certain perspective that you can take to it, which can actually help you grow in some way, without constantly comparing yourself with somebody. I think comparison, I wish that had just, like, never happened. Yeah.
Disappear.
If I
Comparison
had
be
if I
gone.
were to remove one thing from the world, it would be this comparison wala thing. Like, I just don't get it.
Just don't get it, do you? I love it. And I mean, that's why I met you on a Zoom call with a lot of ladies change
Yeah.
makers on the screen, but sometimes you just feel this vibe and this connection, either because uh, of the way the person comes across, and also because of the journey that they've been in. Both you and I do come from the world of words, journalism,
Yep.
writing. We share passions, baking, kids, role model. So yes, I definitely resonate with who you are. Thank you for being that person.
Awesome.
What
Thank
ab-
you.
what ab- what about those people who haven't fully had that privilege to discover who they are? And this could be somebody in their 50s, this could be somebody in just 15, doesn't matter. But what is your advice to somebody who hasn't had that privilege or that joy of discovering who they are?
So I don't have a piece of advice. Like, I always come from, this is what I
Yeah,
experienced.
yeah.
And if my sharing my experience can give you, some input, some direction, or even a sense of what you don't want to do, right? I mean, that's just as helpful. Because I keep saying, meeting people who show you what you never want to be is just as helpful as people who show you what you want to be. So you need both kinds, in your life. But I really think this whole thing of finding yourself or understanding yourself is very, very subjective in terms of what it means to you. Do you even want to do it? I often have conversations with my friends where I'm like, don't you want to evolve? Don't you want to grow? And they're like, no. We're totally okay. And it gave me a great insight that not everybody here wants to really find themselves and be the best version of themselves. No, I mean, they're quite happy with how life is going for them. So to them, when you talk about find yourself and be your true self, all of that just sounds like it's not resonating, or it's not making sense. So it is about people, if they want to, then I think it's just about becoming like mindful. And by mindful, I mean, like, even if you're just having chai, just realize also there is a cup, and I'm holding the cup with these two fingers. So then, you know what, slowly you start becoming very grateful to your body, that I just have to think that I want to hold this cup, and these two fingers come together on their own. Like, it's almost like magic, right? So when you look at every little thing with that kind of a perspective, I think slowly you become aware of what's happening inside, and is this what I want to be doing or not? And then, bit by bit by bit, whether you want to call it healing, whether you want to call it unraveling yourself or discovering it, I think then it just happens. But I feel like you have to be ready, and that's not something I think we consciously decide. It's just you're on mute.
As there's a lot of noise over there.
No, this is the
So
typical corporate. Sorry, I was on mute. It's
yeah,
become
I
a
know that
meme now. So, yeah.
that moment on my own show. Awesome. No, so it's almost like the like you said, it happens. It comes
Yeah.
together just the way your fingers come together to hold that cup. It's by default kind of that happens. And when you talk about the universe listening, so you're as a believer in the universe, you are someone who's all about gratitude as well, whether it's the big things, the small
Yeah.
things, the good or the bad. Tell us a little bit about that, because you are someone who really believes there's enough sunshine for us all. Tell us more
Absolutely,
on that,
absolutely.
please.
Which is why this whole comparison and competition thing, sometimes to me, I just don't get it. Like, because some people get so entangled in that whole thing of, but he got this and she got this, that I'm like, why aren't you looking at what you're getting? And then it becomes, and unfortunately, this is the group of people that find it very hard to understand or wrap their head around gratitude, because they're like, yeah, but this, but that. And I'm just like, yeah, why can't you just go back and look at what you have today? And there's this phrase that does the rounds on social media, which says, you are living the prayers that you had wished for,
Had you wait for
in the past.
exactly.
And it's important to look at it that way. And for me, I think every single day it's important to, yes, be driven and want more in life, want to achieve, want to earn, buy, be, do, all of that is great. But I feel like you will not move to the next step if you're not already grateful for what you have.
True that.
And that is true for everything, like from people in your life to, I don't know, just electricity, water. Why does it have to take a flood for people to say, oh, poor things, these people there don't have electricity, look at us, our fan is running all the time? Why are we doing that? Or go to like a, I don't know, like a rural camp or something, and then come back saying, oh, thank God, we have these nice bathrooms over here, we have a faucet, ye wo. Why aren't we already realizing that? Why does it have to be that you are denied it for a while, and then when you come back to it, you're like, ha ha ha. And I feel like we waste a lot of time when we do that, because if you can
Hmm.
be grateful for what you have right now, it just amplifies and you move on. And I think it's very strange, because just recently something happened where I was very upset about a certain someone not being grateful for something that was done. Okay, so I was told that not everybody is as grateful as you are, and it doesn't come naturally to everyone, which I concede. Absolutely, I agree. But then it also made me realize that the next time this person wants something, right, or when I have an opportunity to think of someone, am I going to be thinking of this person first? you
Hmm.
know so think about it. Like, if you did something really nice for someone, you're not expecting anything in
Yep.
return, just one thanks. Like, hey, you know
Hmm.
what, Rupaya, thank you for calling me on the show, right? Something as
Hmm.
small as that. But let's say I came here and didn't show one bit of gratitude, and in fact I'm like, you know what, I'm on this show, and whatever, and the next time you have an opportunity, I'm not really sure in your heart I'm going to be the first person that comes to your mind. And
Hmm.
I was like, is the universe also like that?
Hmm.
That if you say, hey universe, thank you, I know what you did today for me, uh, then the universe is like, oh my god, she's realizing what I'm doing for her, you know. And then it's a cycle, right? So it's not about doing something for someone with vested interest or wanting something in return, no. But as humans, I think it's absolutely okay to expect someone to feel a sense of, hey, thanks, thanks for
Yeah.
doing this for me, or thanks for getting this for me, or whatever. So I feel like the universe for me has always been like that. And to the point where now even when something not so pleasant happens, right, at that point, yes, I'm stressed and I'm worried, like, why is this happening? But somewhere in my head, I'm like, I'm going to find out that either
Yeah.
this was a warning for something, or this is showing me something. In some way there is a message that is hidden in even the not so. But if I had gotten stuck in that, saying this always happens to me, all bad things happen to me, and I'm always the one that has to suffer, I'm the one that's, that's what you're going to get, because you yourself have put yourself in that rut. So if you're
Mm,
getting like the raw end of the deal every single time, you might want to just try and change what you're saying about it, you
true.
know?
And if you're always getting the raw end of the deal, I think the realization here should also be that you are always in part of that deal.
Yeah.
The common factor there is you.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
figure out where you are, where the gap really is in
Yeah.
terms of your mindset and the tool set that have you have been given, the experiences that you've been given. What's going on? I'm a big advocate of even being thankful for the challenges,
Yeah.
because they're shaping you in every moment. It's just
Absolutely.
that if you could stop complaining about those challenges and see what's the lesson in there, I think
Yeah.
that is where you actually hit the nail on the head
Yeah.
and go.
As my NLP coach says, even the not so pleasant things actually have your best intentions in mind, you
Yeah.
know? So it's just about understanding the layers of it and then working with, oh, okay, so this was what you were trying to tell me. And then, then move from there. But
Yeah.
I think what comes as a default, or what comes very easily, is to go into a spiral of I'm the victim, and things never work for me, or this always happens, that kind of
Mm.
a thing.
I think the questions we ask in such situations are always the wrong ones. We always ask this, why is this happening to me? So the
Mm,
universe will come back and tell you why it's happening to you. And
yeah.
very often that's not the answer, or
Yeah.
that's not what you want to be told. You actually want to be told, what am I learning from this situation?
Mm, yeah.
How am I becoming stronger? How am I becoming better in this situation? How is
Yeah.
the situation serving me? Questions like that definitely will
Yeah.
take
Like
you in
even
that
the
direction.
why me, right? The why
Yeah.
me can be looked at in a nice way, like, hey, okay, so you're doing this to me, but why me? Like, what's
Hmm.
your plan for me, right?
What's your
Um,
plan for me?
yeah, and I
Yeah,
think
I like that.
we don't have to make it so serious. Like my relationship with the universe is very, very friendly. I'm just like, like I just talk. Like, hey, listen, you know what? I know what you were
Hmm.
doing there. Or like even when when there have been moments when I'm so stressed, I'm like, listen, I know you're trying to tell me something. Is this the best way? Because like I'm really freaking out. So can you quickly just get to the point? That kind of
Yeah,
a thing.
I like this. Get to the point. Yes, get to the point. We definitely have to get to the point of also understanding that there's so much to us than that meets the eye.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Oh, yes. I like that. Tell me, why did you roll your eyes? I want to
No.
know.
Yeah, because I think, like at least for me, I'm 36. I come from a generation where you were judged so much for just the physicality of it. And by that, I
Mm,
don't just mean your height and your weight, but also the kind of clothes you wore, the kind of home that you lived in. All of these things. At some point, I just feel like if you just strip it all down and make everybody wear a uniform, and then look at the person and be like, okay, so this is who she is, or this is who he is, that's when you realize that there's so much more to a person. And it sometimes this realization comes to you when you hear what people's perception of you is, when they assume things about you just basis what they're looking at. Like, oh, you have it all going, everything looks great, yeah, well, come home and then you'll know how much we fight, right? Small things like that. So uh, but I think I do feel like today increasingly people are becoming a little more aware that there is more to it. There's more to it than what you see. I think movies, media, everything is giving you that little peek beyond just what you see, just beyond the facade that we all have decided to put on,
true that.
consciously or otherwise.
True that. And we
Yeah.
have a comment coming in from Abdullah. Thank you for watching. He says, we can ask the universe for what we want, but it might not be part of the bigger picture. We have to be careful what we ask for.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
I agree. But somewhere I also feel like if it's not part of your bigger picture, chances are it will not materialize or manifest in the way that's best for you. So, like I keep saying what's best for me will happen. And
Mm,
I don't mean I'll just sit around and then it has to happen. No, I will work towards what my goals are. But let's say I want a certain type of a job and I've been applying and I don't get it. At some point, I have to believe that that's for my best. That
mm,
maybe there is something. Again, if I say something better, it sounds very cliche. Like everybody says that you don't get picked for a job and then you say, oh, something better is waiting. But maybe something different.
mm.
Maybe something that's more useful to you and more helpful to you will come your way. So yeah,
And the word that comes to my mind is what you used some time back, nourishing.
yeah.
Something that's more nourishing for you will
Nourish.
definitely come
Yeah,
your way. I love that. I really fell in love with that. Thank you.
yeah.
So, how do you then realize when's the time to let go?
Oh, letting go is, I think, one of the hardest things to do because as much as I might seem like, okay, fine, I am connected with my inner self and I know what it is, there are still moments of absolute panic, wondering like, oh, am I not doing enough? Is
Mm,
this where I should be? Should I actually be doing a lot more or should I be somewhere else and blah, blah, blah. And that's when like it can get quite paralyzing, because you suddenly don't know what to do. And
mm,
which is then why you come back to the drawing board of who am I and what do I really want, you
mm,
know, and is this really going to serve me towards that? And if it isn't, I think if you answer those questions, it becomes easier to let go, whether it is of a certain person or a goal or a relationship, whatever it is, right? If you start asking yourself very, very honest questions and answer them honestly as well, I think it becomes easier. I'm not saying it is easy, but I think relatively at least it becomes easier to let go because the logic behind it is clear to you.
mm.
You know,
I
like
think,
I keep saying when you do something, if you know why you're doing it, it makes it that much easier as opposed to, oh, I have to do this.
mm,
That's probably those are the kind of things that you don't see through till the end because you yourself are not clear about why am I even doing this.
mm. And as you say that, what I am reminded of is the smile strategy that I'm known for, which is silence the mind, manage your attention, identify the intention, let things go, and energize the possibilities. It's all about bringing it all together, being in silence with yourself, understanding what you need to really focus on, the intention, letting past failures go, and then to put things into actions, which is so important in the
Yeah, I think
process
the
of becoming
letting
yourself.
yeah letting past failures go is, I think, extremely important because what we don't realize is just holding on to what we have perceived as failures in the past can actually stop us from moving forward. And way too many people have, I think, just gone through their life holding on to the past, saying, Array, but 15 years back I should have done this, or 20 years back I should
Yeah.
have done this. You're forgetting that for the next 5 years that you're cribbing, it's going to become 25 years back I should have done this, and 20 years back I should have done this. So, really, it is up to you whether you want to stop that narrative and, create a new one.
Hmm. And as you were saying that, a question came to my mind and it beautifully slipped away.
Do you want me to say
Wait
that
for
again?
I think golden words should not be repeated. But then, as you said that, what did come to my mind is yes, the narrative has to keep changing. Narrative has to keep evolving and to look inwards. The
Yeah.
question that did come to my mind was about guilt.
Hmm.
We live in a community where you have to serve others first, and when you are looking at being yourself, sometimes there's a inkling of guilt that comes into the picture, because
Yeah.
your role as a mom, you have to
Yeah.
do certain things. Your role as a daughter, you have to do certain things. Your role as an employee, you have to, or as a business owner, you have to. And so how do you actually then be yourself guilt free?
Yeah. Oh, I was a big one for guilt. A
Yeah.
couple of years back, or even until more recently, where for everything I would say sorry. If I was
Ooh,
five
yes.
minutes late, if I would get home 5 minutes late, I'd keep saying sorry to my mom. And my mom would be like, why are you saying sorry? Like, and it was
You
this
lucky you.
unexplained, yeah, unexplained guilt within, where you just felt like, this is my job, you know, this is my job. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I think it comes from being very, very rigid in what you only have decided for yourself. And very often, the guilt arises from our own definition of who we are supposed to be.
Yeah.
If I'm a mother, I have decided that I have to cook every meal and feed every meal. There is no rule book that says so, right? Yeah, you know what I mean. And so if I miss feeding my child apne haathon se 2 meals in the day, it's guilt. Oh my god, what am I doing? At the workplace, you take on roles, and you take on responsibility, saying I have to, because, oh, I'm a senior management person, blah 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 blah. And then when you don't, there's guilt. Oh, I had to go home early because my kid was sick. And then you realize that you're literally in one cycle where either you're guilty here or you're guilty there. And I remember in my podcast days, when I interviewed this really senior woman, and she said that every single morning I decide, who am I being today? Am I being the professional today, or am I being the mother today? And once I decide that, I'm not going to think about what I'm not doing in the other role. I'm going to focus on what I need to be doing in this role, you know. And I think it made a lot of sense, because when you're stuck in the middle and if the lines are blurring, you don't really get much done either places, right? So you'd rather say, in these hours or on these days, I'm focusing on this. And that doesn't mean you've abandoned the other role that you're playing, right? I mean, you've made arrangements, there's somebody helping you, there's somebody supporting you. So guilt is really like, I have realized that when I'm feeling guilty about something, it is 99% my own doing. And the rest of the family is looking at me like, we didn't even say anything, and that's the funny bit. But if you do have people who are making you feel like, oh, you should be doing this and you aren't doing this, ask yourself first, do you agree with them? You don't have to feel guilty because somebody is making you feel so. Do you agree? Are you on the same page as them? And if you are, then you look at, okay, so what can I do to not behave this particular way, right? But if you're not in agreement with them, it's not your cross to bear, right? I mean, if they are feeling that you should be guilty, let them continue to feel that. That doesn't mean you have to feel guilty.
I love this. It's their cross to bear. At the end of the day, it's not for you to take on
Yeah,
that guilt, but it's for them to decide what they would like to do with that guilt. Keep carrying it upon themselves,
yeah,
wanting to hook you with it, or just
yeah,
go for a walk.
yeah.
For the lack of a better
Yeah.
way to put it.
Mhm.
Yes. So be yourself, guilt free is definitely the loud and clear message coming across as I speak to you. Judgments will come. You can't avoid judgment. I really
Yeah,
feel
and
that we
and
live
people,
in a world.
selfish is another word that comes in when I say I want to spend time with myself, or I want to do this for myself. Most times people will say that's really selfish, and I don't really know why there's such a negative connotation to being selfish. You know, who said it's wrong to be selfish? Like, I think we've grown, these are positive words and these are negative words, and somewhere selfish is a negative word. But if you're doing something for yourself, the Supriya within me is thanking me. She's like, thank you for taking it easy today, because you weren't constantly like yelling at me saying, oh, we still have to do this, we still have to do that, right? So it's okay. And if another person outside of you is not able to understand that, again, that's totally okay. I mean, respectfully, that's okay.
Respectfully, that's okay. I love that. Also, as you say that, what I realize is when I have a super packed day, I take time to enjoy and cherish a scoop of ice cream. It's my unwind. I
I'm
mean,
glad you
I
know
could.
what it is.
It's my scoop of ice cream. It just has to be a scoop of ice cream. And for me, it's more like, okay, I know this is the day, this is the flow of the day, this is how the events are going to go. But in the midst of all of this, I need my time too, and that's perfectly fine. So,
I like what Lata says. That's not being selfish, it's caring. I'm guessing
it
you mean it
is.
for the ice cream, which I totally agree.
Yes, and I think as she's also talking about generally being how people look at being selfish. When you're giving yourself time, it's not
Yeah.
being selfish; it's about caring, right? So yes, thank you for adding that in, Lata. And what is one thing? Let's put it out there for the audience. What is one thing that you're going to be doing this conversation forward to take care of yourself? What is one thing that you might include in the day or in a week? You can start off with once a week of something that you might do for yourself so that you feel cared and listened to. Thank you, Lata. So let me start with you, Supriya. What's something that
Hmm.
you think you'd like to start doing, and or is that you are doing to take
Right.
care of
So
yourself?
I realized that, just having time where I do not have any chatter around me and there is absolutely no task to be completed, right? Where I can just be. For me, that's precious time. So if that is half an hour of just being after the entire family has gone to sleep, or if you're like a morning person waking up before the whole family does, when there's absolutely no noise and it's totally silent, I feel like that is my time, because it's almost like you can listen to yourself. When they say it was so silent you could hear your heartbeat, I just wish for some silence where you can just hear your inner voice and what she's saying. I don't think we acknowledge that there's another she within who's also like. So today I feel like the Supriya inside is like, "Arey wow, well done," and she's listening to all of that.
Hmm. So we've got Lata who says, "I'd like to tune inwards more often." Whoops. We've got spamming. Sorry about that. All right. This is interesting.
And you're gonna have a
Uh,
badam shake at an ice cream parlor nearby.
Yes, I am definitely going to do that. I am going to have a badam shake, which is at an ice cream parlor nearby. And guys, anybody else who'd like to write in their comments, let us know what you're going to be doing and how you're going to feel more like yourself, because that is super, super important. We're just going to ignore the spam coming in because that's a convenient way to do it. And we're just going to be
But
ourselves.
I'm actually looking at those as signs as well, because if you look at, like, look at yourself and strip it down to the very basic of who
Yep.
you are, remove the layers of the roles that you're playing or what the society has conditioned us to be, and be like, what is it that the true inner you uh, just wants, and you'll realize it's very small things, very, very small things.
Yeah,
You don't have to like conquer massive things to make yourself happy.
I like that.
But I think a lot of unhappiness happens because you're not listening to that person.
And I guess as I said it, I also said, what's that one thing you will do so that you feel listened to?
Yeah.
Thank you, Neeta. She says, start walking, workout just for my own health and to keep myself fit. I've been doing it for some time just because I was part of a fitness group. So yeah, I think now it's evolved into doing it for your own self, and that's beautiful, isn't it? I couldn't do it for long, just gave up. So even if it's a little bit of a walk, even if it's just a little bit of a looking inward at your health and just
Yeah.
being grateful for what you have, would be a beautiful thing to do. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks, Rita.
So, in closing, knowing that we have less than 10 minutes with us, is there something, okay, Lata says, you need to listen to yourself. You need to
Yeah.
listen to yourself. Absolutely. Thank
And I
you.
feel like
Thank you
to
so
do
much.
that, the chatter needs to stop, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it like a small child who's constantly trying to say something, but then you have all these adults who are way taller, way bigger, and they're all talking in their, really deep and loud voices, and the kid keeps saying something. After a point, the kid's going to get tired, either get upset, angry, throw a tantrum, all of that. And that's pretty much what happens with us. Either
Mm.
the kid goes completely silent and there's no sign of the child, or then you throw a tantrum, which is then you start feeling all these uneasy things, and you feel unsettled, or then you're irritable, all of these not so pleasant emotions that we start experiencing. I think it's that inner child just throwing a fuss to say you're not listening, just listen.
Just listen.
So
Just listen to who I am. Just
yeah.
recognize that I even exist
Yeah.
because you're so busy being some everybody else, but you've
Yeah.
forgotten who the inner you is. So thank
Yeah.
you so much, Supriya, for reminding us of that in very, very appropriate time. And I'm so grateful, so, so grateful that you are in my countdown to 100,
So
really.
exciting, thank you. And 90, I'm like, oh my god.
I
I mean,
know.
imagine.
I mean, we started these conversations, and I say we because these are all people, geniuses from my. I mean, you guys have all my guests have been friends from my circle of genius. People I've met on social media, people I've met at events on Facebook and LinkedIn, various communities. I know all of the 97 guests I've had on
Wow.
board. Like literally, people I know have been my guests. And it's been so casual conversations in flow,
Yeah.
um, about the things that are so little. They seem like they're little, but actually, if you paid attention to them, they could make such a massive change in your
Yes.
life.
Yes.
And I started this in April of 2020 when all lockdown and overwhelm was happening. By day everyone would be busy with work from home, etc. But by evening it would begin to feel a little daunting. So I thought, what is
Mm.
one thing I could do to make the best with what I have? And this was my
Lovely.
answer. So thank you.
Yeah. And your
Um,
consistency is inspiring, Rukaya. Seriously. I mean,
Thank you.
turning up every single day. I think that takes a lot, because it's so easy not to. You know.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Anyone who's tried knows that for whatever reason and whatever, like even if it's about journaling or reading a page of a book, anything, to stay consistent and do it every single day to show that kind of a commitment to yourself as well. I think is amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much. We have a comment coming in from
Yeah.
Vidya. She says, "Stop feeling guilty for things that I get blamed just because the expectations are unreasonable." This is one thing that she is going to be doing. Vidya, it's
Yeah.
about time. Thank
Yeah.
you. And Vidya, Supriya is also in Bangalore, isn't she? Yes?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so is Vidya.
Thank
So
you. Thank you.
that's why I'm connecting. Absolutely interesting session. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for listening. Nita says, grateful for you both for having this talk. Inspiring.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks, Neeta. So
And I
sweet.
love the smileys. Thank you. So, in closing, what is something that you would like to share with us, Supriya, before you sign out for the evening?
Right. I really think that it's important to start listening to what is important to you, right? And I always say that, people will have an opinion on what you should do and how you should be, what you should be saying, doing, wearing, achieving, all of that, right? And maybe they have only the best intentions in mind for you, which is absolutely great. But you have to align and see if that is what you want, and respectfully let go of what is not your calling, or what is not your, what's not your goal, and focus on what is it that makes you happy. And as much as we think that it's selfish that I'm going to make myself happy, the happier you are, the more happiness and joy you will be able to give other people. And in every role that you play, by being so happy, you're just going to amplify the impact that you're having on them. So if
Hmm.
anything, if others are of such importance to you, remember that you being a happy person is only going to make them feel that happiness. So if
Hmm.
that drives you, well, then even better, so if other people are what kind of drive you, might as well use it for your good.
Hmm. And if you flip it, just because I like being that little kid, if you
Sure.
keep smiling, people will wonder what you're up to,
Yeah.
right?
But
So
it's
if you
strange.
hmm.
It's strange
And
because
if
I
you're
once got
constantly,
this from someone who
yeah,
said, "You're forever smiling. What are you hiding?"
hmm.
And I was like, I hope you feel better soon, and you stop feeling this way that somebody who's smiling is actually hiding something. Because
Hmm.
some of us are genuinely wanting to smile. And
Yeah,
it's just, yeah, like again in NLP we say, right, like change your state when you're not feeling too good, just like, broaden your shoulders, sit up straight, have a smile, or wear a color that you like. These things really help. So like you said, if you keep smiling, it's going to give your body that sign, like, okay, there's something good happening. you know so
yeah.
everything else then kind of reacts to it.
Because on an unconscious level, your mind, your subconscious is like, oh, I can see that things around her are a bit of a mess. However, she's
She's
smiling, so
still,
there
yeah,
must be reason for it. And let me start looking for that evidence
yeah,
of
yeah.
why she's possibly smiling.
That also
Uh,
inspires people, to be honest,
hmm,
where they're like, that's something to take away from you, that even if things are not going great around you, you still seem to see something that's not so obvious, but it is good. So
it
there's
is
there's
good.
that.
It
Vidya
is
has
good.
said, that's
That's
exactly my
exactly
challenge.
my challenge. Hmm. And Lata says you can only give what you have. Absolutely, you can only give what you have. It's like when you squeeze a lemon, you get lemon juice. So, what exactly are you made of? What's within you that you are going to be? What's your essence? essence, right? You crush the flowers and they give that fragrance, that blossom, that beautiful knowingness of who they are. So I wish each and every one of you listening in with us today on the live and later on also on the replay, because this definitely is a conversation to share. If this has been of value to you, do share it with friends and family, because more of them can gain value from it. As you crush the rose, as you crush those flowers, they give out their fragrance, they have that knowingness of who they are. I wish you many moments of that, because there is power in being yourself. Thank you, Supriya, for your time and the
Thank
wisdom
you.
that you've brought to the table, and thank you for saying yes for this
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you so much for thinking of me. And I'm so glad this happened. And really, big, big thanks to everyone who's joined us live, and to anyone who'll be watching this later as well. I hope this is of some value. And if you can, do one little thing for yourself, I think that'll just make you really, really happy.
Thank you. So you take care of yourself, and thank you everybody for joining
Thanks,
us.
guys. Bye bye.
Catch you next week. Bye bye.